G'day everyone, welcome to another video by myself, Andrew DFT. And today is a Halo tutorial. I decided to go back to the original designs and bring you something from the Halo 3 era, and of course that is the much loved Halo 3 battle rifle. Now I did a Halo 2 anniversary battle rifle tutorial like this one a while ago. This is my premiere one made out of styrofoam, so it's a much higher detail. But of course today I decided let's change it up and we'll go for a Halo 3 out of EVA. So of course this is it in its raw form. When we go and paint it up, you're going to have something looking a lot better. I won't be covering a painting techniques in this video, that is out there already. You've got plenty of information in my previous videos and of course online. So this is purely about making the damn thing. So this is a build of course for beginners and of course those who are a bit more advanced. Those who are more advanced can definitely take this a step further, apply mechanical features, definitely make a lot of these a bit more cleaner, add different layers, use different thicknesses of foam. But for the most part, for the beginners, we're going to be using one standard thickness of one material across the board of it. Now I will say before we launch into it, I won't be producing a scope for this tutorial. That's something you guys are going to have to go off and do by yourself. This is about the main body of the gun. The scope I used on this was a simple $2 one I found at a $2 store. It's just made for like some crappy $2 prop, but it fits on perfectly and it's 1:1 scale, so that's how I did it. So with that said, let's jump in and get started on the tutorial. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is of course print off the templates. You can of course download those via the link in the description box below for free. Once you've assembled the template, you can transfer it onto the big foam core sheet. I've constructed it so it should sit nicely on the diagonal. What we can do then is cut out 3 sections of this, 3 layers, one of one side and 2 of the other. So that way, if you have the textured side, this of course will hide it. Now what you can do then of course is go ahead and meld all these together with your adhesive of choice. Whether you're using hot glue or art cement, this is exactly the same process. Obviously we're going to see some imperfections in the lines. Nothing's going to be 100% flush because we are physically cutting these with a craft knife, not using a bandsaw, so you are going to have those imperfections. What is important is you identify where those are, then you go back with a craft blade and you cut those to be flush, or you go with a Dremel if you have one and sand them back. Once you've spent some time of course making those areas flush, we can move on and get started on the detail. The first section we'll do is cut it out of the template, and this is of course the little indent where the trigger is and where your finger will wrap around to obviously grip the trigger a bit better. What we're going to do is apply the template lines, and then we'll add a depth line about 1/4 of the way through the top layer of foam. Don't want to go too deep, it's just a simple little indentation that is a bit of detail. It doesn't need to be that extreme. All you're doing is running the blade vertically down the template lines, coming in on the depth line at a horizontal until it reaches those points, and you should be able to pull it flush out of there. Next we can move on to actually rounding off the handle. Of course right now it sits at a 90-degree slope, which is rather awkward to actually hold. So what we'll do is we'll grab the template, we'll cut off the perimeter lines, transfer it onto the foam, adding a depth line about halfway through that top layer of foam. Not too deep, just halfway is fine. You can go 1/4 if you'd like. Then with a nice sharp craft blade, you're going to go ahead and bevel off these edges. You can see my cuts are coming off perfectly and really nice and crisp. If it's jagged or if it pulls at the foam on your one, it means the blade is not sharp enough, but you can go back with the sandpaper and kind of smooth it out if you wish. We're now going to jump to the back butt of the gun. We're going to get this section done so we can start to build up the layers. We're going to cut the template free and apply in the perimeter line first, so that way we can then break apart the template further and adding in these vertical lines, which I don't know what part of detail they are just are on the gun, so therefore we're going to match it. Once the vertical lines have been placed in nicely, you can go ahead with the sharp craft blade and of course score those lines, just breaking the surface of the foam so we can give them some detail when we heat treat it later. Now we can move on to actually starting to apply some additional layers. First we'll do is cut the template out, of course where the magazine goes. We'll lay it onto the foam and actually draw the outline so we know exactly where this is going to go later. We can then cut the top triangle section off the magazine part completely and then use the template to transfer to flip the template so you have a left and a right magazine compartments out of the foam, full thickness, and you can just go ahead and make sure it fits in position. And now to make it a bit thinner, we're actually going to add a bevel line 3/4 of the way through the thickness. This is also going to get rid of the texture, which is great, but you're going to be careful here. Once you've got this depth line laid in about 3/4 of the way through we are going to cut it. But to do that, you're going to have to be very careful, avoiding your fingers, making sure your hands are always out of the way, but running the blade halfway through and then slowly getting deeper each time you cut around. Once that's done, you're left with a nicer, thinner piece with a flat bottom, so it should sit flush once you glue it in like that. Now a quick piece of detail we'll add on is we'll just bevel the bottom here. Right now it sits at a hard edge, which does not really matter, but I mean, I like to make these things kind of a bit more coherent, so we're just going to go with the beveled edge and slope it off so that way it kind of matches with the perimeter handle area that we did prior to this. Before we also progress, we'll go ahead and cut these sections out of the template using the craft blade. You can then just lay the template onto the foam and go ahead and transfer that out with a pen. You can go ahead and straighten the lines out so that when we go and score these like we're doing now, it is of course to the best of our ability, and it is a nice piece of detail that of course when we heat treat later should look rather nice. Now onto the very centerpiece of this design. We're going to go ahead and attack the triangle area that is of course the ideal point of view, the iconic piece that makes this a battle rifle. So what we'll do is we'll of course grab the template, transfer that onto the phone, give ourselves two, being sure to flip the template, then very carefully and time-stakingly go ahead and cut out all the triangles from the template. We can then lay the template onto the foam and then draw in all those triangles, being sure they are nice and straight and they all do match up using a ruler later, and of course make sure they are well defined so that you know exactly where you're cutting. Now in the cutting process, you're going to have a very sharp craft blade and you're just going to take your time. This took me about 30 minutes on each strip. That's about 7 triangles. It took me 30 minutes to make sure that I was doing this perfectly and I wasn't over-cutting. Once we've cut one main triangle free, you're going to apply a depth line about halfway through that thickness. Then you're going to go back and actually slice that piece in half, put it back into the triangle. We have these lovely depths being given, and of course when we heat these later, they'll just look fantastic and give us the detail that exactly what we're after. So that's it. Part 1 done and dusted. Of course, now we're going to go ahead and click on part 2 and continue the build. You can definitely see the way we're heading and the amount of detail we're wanting to provide and the attention we're wanting to give it, hence why I've separated it over to 2 builds. So, of course, if you have any friends that maybe want to make this, share the video with them, and if you enjoyed it, give it a like. But until the next one, I'll catch you later.